The trees in Fromville are strange and mysterious. They move on their own, some can transport people, they seem to connect at a central tree-like heart, and I believe may be the key to everything. Tree spirits and deities are very common and in almost every culture around the world. I believe the main entity of Fromville could be an evil or corrupted tree spirit or god, and it pulls from many different mythologies around the world. I will go over what I think supports this and how ultimately to beat this entity. There are a lot of micro details I'll have to speculate on because they have not been fully explored or explained in the show yet. But I do think I have a pretty solid case to confirm this theory with what has been revealed in the TV show thus far. Let's dive into the different aspects of them and see if we can get to the root of this mystery. The first tree that everyone comes in contact with is the fallen tree that traps people in Fromville. This tree is important enough that it is specifically included in the cave drawings. Throughout season 1, Jade is convinced that Fromville is a puzzle or a maze that can be solved. In season 3, he is trying to figure this out and is actively trying to map it. Throughout his pursuit of this, he is led to this symbol over and over again. We find out that this symbol is drawn in the cave and represents what I believe is the root system of the trees, with the sky in the background. Captive children stare up at the roots and the sky while doing a chant. I may be reading into this a bit, but it does seem like a metaphor that the root system can lead you to freedom. The children are held captive, as the people of the town are as well, and they stare up at the root system with the sky or freedom in the background, as if behind the root system is freedom for the people of Fromville. It is, after all, the farway tree that leads people to the lighthouse and other key locations, so they do seem to be crucial in leading people ultimately to escaping the town. As we all know, Fromville has attributes of being alive and an entity itself. When you push, it pushes back. When they tried to build a radio, the storm came in and knocked it down. When they dug a hole, the building collapsed on top of it. When Boyd destroyed the music box, the town was punished with winter and poisoned soil. The trees tend to move on their own, and I believe this hints to them being an alive entity with a tree beating heart at the center of it all. Perhaps the tree entity is the actual entity of Fromville itself. As well, the monsters do seem to be tree-like. Their insides appear like rotten wood, and they move slowly like a tree would. It is possible they could be an extension or a projection of the tree entity itself. Most of the faraway trees send you to random places, however, there are certain ones that send you to only a specific place. The faraway tree with the bottles on it sends people only to the lighthouse, and I believe there are probably more faraway trees like this, but they have just not been found yet. Even the ones that send you to places randomly probably have a pattern that could theoretically be figured out. This is the maze that Jade is talking about and trying to solve and map. Bottles and trees have been known as a way to ward off evil spirits. It would seem someone put up these bottles with the same dates in them as what's in the lighthouse, as if at certain major events in Fromville's history, evil things happen, and someone was trying to ward off the spirits of those events. This would make sense if things can travel forward and backwards in time through the trees. Boyd seems to travel back in time when he goes through the faraway tree at the end of season 1. So perhaps evil spirits can travel from the past through the faraway trees, in the same way that the blood curse seemed to come from the past. However, is it actually time travel or just an illusion? This is unclear because you can't really trust your eyes in this show because you never know if what you see is really there. When Boyd saves the 3 captured people, their physical bodies were still in the town, so this would make me think the prison place that they were chained up in isn't an actual physical place in which Boyd traveled back in time to, and a lot of what we see is probably just an illusion. Boyd's wife speaks to him through Sarah while they are at the bottle tree, warning him to go back to town. Then he later sees what looks like his wife trying to stop him from destroying the music box. I think that both of these times were the entity of Fromville and not actually his wife. Boyd's wife says hope is what makes you willing to suffer, and Boyd should just take things as they are and allow the three people to stay captive. When you have hope and try to escape or improve your situation in Fromville, the entity just pushes back to crush you. The entity is attracted to hope like a bug to a light bulb. Then in Season 3, the monsters make an attempt to specifically break Boyd and his hope. This place clearly wants you hopeless and compliant, almost like breaking in an animal. Also, when people push, they could solve the puzzle of Fromville and find ways to fight back or escape. So punishment is used as a deterrent to break the hope of the people so that they don't pursue this. We know that the cave drawings were created by the monsters themselves. This is something that Victor states, so the drawings would be from their perspective. So it does put us in a position where we are trying to interpret what the monsters are trying to say with their drawing. This part of the map shows a building surrounded by trees, which could represent the town, and the people drawn in red are around what looks like a field of crops. The people that come from outside of Fromville are drawn as white, so I do think that the ones here drawn in red are actually the monsters themselves. Perhaps they view the people of Fromville as livestock and draw them as a field to harvest. This is pretty cynical, but also take it with a grain of salt because it is just my best interpretation. The idea of Fromville feeding off of the souls and emotions of the people is a common theme throughout the show. Spiders are hinted at many different times. The music box monster takes the souls of 3 to feed off of them over time, and the monsters don't want to just kill, but they want to emotionally torture the people, as if they are getting something out of it. I believe Fromville as an entity or entities feeds off of the souls of the people of Fromville, and they do this by tormenting them. I do think the monsters are a projection of the tree entity. I'm unsure about the music box entity or the spiders that are drawn. However, they could also be projections from the tree entity or entities that work in a similar way with feeding off of the souls and emotions of the people of Fromville. It is also possible the children were offered up to the heart of the tree as an offering at some point. Perhaps the talismans were given as a reward for the offering. The talisman does show trees drawn in the same way they are in the cave drawing, which means they are drawn the same way that the monsters draw them. So it could be kinda cynical if the monsters themselves did create the talisman as a reward for those who offer up a sacrifice. The talisman could be interpreted as 2 people at an altar with the tree entity all around them. So perhaps it's a promise that those who participated in the ritual would be protected from the monsters in the future. But take all of that with a large pinch of salt. The latest date in the lighthouse is 1978, which is most likely when Victor was a child, and when the whole town died. So these dates could mark points when the whole town is killed off and the cycle of Fromville starts over again. This was also when his mom said they had found a way out and was going to the lighthouse for this specific reason. I do think that the entity of Fromville killed everyone in response to this. Some type of calling to stop the people from escaping or defeating the entity itself. Either way, the dates represent cycles, and Victor apparently lived through the last one. Something also to note is that 2 cars came into Fromville at the beginning of Season 1, which is out of the norm. Also, a whole bus full of people were brought at the end of Season 1. It's almost like the entity is building up the amount of people in Fromville for some type of an event. Perhaps a ritual, sacrifice, or something else like that. The person captured by the music box monster seems to be almost drained of all of the life left in him. Furthermore, the children look extremely sickly and about to die. Perhaps the entity needs fresh souls to capture and feed off of, because the people that are currently captured, the children and the man, are almost at the end of their life and don't have much more to give. That's why Fatima can have children even though she couldn't have children in the real world. The entity wants more fresh children to capture and consume, which I believe goes more into my theory that the monsters view the people as a crop to harvest. They are harvesting their suffering, pain, and their souls. But perhaps at certain points in time, a larger harvest takes place, which marks the end of the season, and that's essentially what the dates in the lighthouse are, and then things at Fromville reset. But either way, none of that has been officially confirmed, so we'll have to wait and see what is revealed in later episodes and seasons. As well, I may be going out on a bit of a limb here, but the symbol on the cave wall has many people thinking that it is some type of a monster. But there could be another possibility. In the context of the root system and the tree entity, it may actually be a drawing of the root system itself, and it does show it stretching out from the tree heart. It is at the center of the drawing in the same way that the tree heart is at the center of the maze, and its root system stretches out from there. Furthermore, the only two things that are drawn in red are the things that I believe are the creatures, and the thing I believe is the tree. So perhaps it shows that connection between the two of them as I'm speculating. But once again, throw a few pinches of salt on that. Something that is also unique about all of the trees drawn in the cave and on the talisman is that they are specifically drawn as half trees. This could symbolize that the trees are only half in the real world and half in some kind of unseen magical dimension. It would seem that the tree network extends beyond space-time and also into another dimension. I believe the tree entity captures the dead people's souls or memories when they die and can then later project it in the real world. We see multiple already dead people, and the entity can talk to people as voices to manipulate them, so clearly it can store the people's memories or their souls. Some people think that there is actual time travel going on in Fromville. This may be possible through the tree system, but I would lean more in the direction that these are projections or illusions of the entity. Just like when the three were captured and chained up, they didn't actually travel back in time because their physical bodies were still in the town, but their minds were trapped in what seemed to be a building from the past. So clearly it was just an illusion and they didn't actually travel back in time. I do think that most of the stuff in the show that seems like time travel is just the tree projecting images, but we will have to wait and see if time travel is actually confirmed, because that could play a crucial part in the people escaping Fromville. Also, fire allows Boyd to rescue the people from the tree and see past the illusion in front of him. Furthermore, it is the sun that makes the monsters go underground, so perhaps fire will play a crucial role in defeating the entity. On the cave drawing, we see that there are two people, a grown-up and a child, that travel from the town and to what I believe is the root system, and then ultimately to the place where the children and the ritual take place. I do believe that getting to this location is solving the maze, and after you save the children, it allows you to escape the maze and escape Fromville. Perhaps you defeat the tree entity by lighting its tree heart on fire, or freeing the children's souls may actually starve the entity, as it does seem to be feeding off of them and powered by them. We know at certain times people are brought to Fromville in order to save the children, because this is the only way to defeat the entity and free everyone from Fromville. The evil entity brings people to Fromville to torment them. It's possible the good entity, which the boy in white represents, brings people to Fromville to save the children. I also think that the dogs could be a part of the good entity as well, but we will have to wait and see on that. The good entity does try to prepare people for how to rescue the children. We know that Victor's mom had many visions of Fromville because she was being prepared for this. The boy in white pushes Tabitha out of the tower and says that this is the only way. The boy is trying to get her more prepared for saving the children, and there is something on the outside world that she is supposed to learn before coming back and having the knowledge to save the children. I also think that Boyd's wife could have been one of these chosen people. Before Boyd's wife goes crazy and starts killing everyone because she believes they are in a dream, she states to her son son that she was thinking about a dream she had as a child, while you see her trying to understand their situation in Fromville, as if she has seen the things here before in the same way Victor's mom did. That is what leads her to believe she is in a dream and lose her mind. However, Victor's mom figured out what she needed to do, but Boyd's wife ultimately just went crazy because she couldn't understand the difference between her dreams, Fromville, and reality. Going back to the drawing of the two people in the cave, I believe the smaller one is the boy in white, and the grown-up is the picked savior of Fromville that the boy in white is trying to guide to the children. Once again, the monsters are the ones that drew these images, so it is from their perspective, showing the entities are aware that the boy in white is trying to get someone to the children to rescue them, and they would be actively trying to stop this. The people that created the show Lost are also the ones creating the show From. There are lots of parallels between the two. For example, unrelated people are stranded in a strange place where seemingly random events and threats are happening. The show Lost kind of fell apart towards the end, but the theme of good and evil and the island being a wedge between the two was what the show was ultimately building up to. Perhaps the show From is doing the same thing, with the entity or entities of evil tormenting the people of the town, and the boy in white and perhaps a yet unseen force of good helping the people. Either way, the mystery of the boy in white has not been revealed yet, so we will just have to wait and see exactly what his motives are, and if he actually represents some force of good. Either way, there are a ton of unanswered questions, but what do you think? Do you think that my theory is getting us closer to the answers of Fromville, and that the main antagonist is some type of a tree god, or is there something else going on?